Wall Street Journal is reporting that Apple, once upon a time, threatened to remove Facebook from its App Store over concerns about human trafficking and how Facebook was being used to that end. And now there's this report that Facebook knows Instagram is in fact toxic to teenage girls and mental health. So what's being done about all this? Let's welcome in Biotech Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. He's also the author of the book Woke Inc. Vivek, great to have you back with us.
Good to see you, John.
All right, so the Senate, it's always been a little kind of questionable about what the Senate, what Congress can actually do here because the power is so massive. But I first want to talk about what are we going to hear today from these executives from Facebook and Google about competition and privacy? What competition, right? What competition?
Yeah. Look, I think that the problem with using antitrust as a lever, John, is that these guys are able to run circles around the lawmakers because they're able to point to the fact that many of their products are available for free. There's widespread consumer choice amongst their products or products sold on their platforms. And that was the kind of thing that classical antitrust law was supposed to police against. And the real problem, John, you and I both know this, right, isn't the monopoly on products alone. It is the monopoly in the marketplace of ideas. It is a monopoly of ideas. And even if we break up four big companies into 10 smaller companies, we're still going to have that same ideological cartel. And I think that's a uniquely 21st century problem that these lawmakers who are taking an antitrust view that's dated for the 20th century are going to continue to miss. And these guys from Silicon Valley are going to continue to run circles around them. So I think we need new solutions that recognize the actual threat is the ideological cartel, the censorship issues that we face. That's what we need to be talking about more.
For conservatives, this is challenging, right? Because you don't want to overburden some government regulations here. And you don't want to get in the way of free commerce, but what we see are the bigger companies snatching up the smaller ones right and left. I mean, anytime you have a small tech company that achieves any kind of profitability or any promise, a bigger company comes and buys it up. And that just kind of creates this snowball effect. And, stopping this on the front end, I don't know how you address the issue, Vivek, but is anybody trying to look at this?
I think the actual real issue isn't even coordination in the marketplace or isn't even consolidation in the marketplace alone. It is the coordination between big business and big government here.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think the conservative impulse towards generally allowing a free market to operate as a free market is a good impulse if we actually have a free market. But what we see today is a lot of these companies are working hand in glove with the government to carry out the government's objectives in ways that deceive the public eye. You see that in the case of big tech censorship. You see that in the case of the management of information or so-called misinformation as it relates to issues ranging from the pandemic response to the origin of the pandemic. That's where I think we need to be focusing, in addition to the governmental protection that these class of companies get in the form of Section 230C2 immunity, that I think empowers them to actually operate at a scale that normal, ordinary, non-internet-based private companies couldn't. So I think that's actually the right place to look, is in the government protections, in the implicit forms of corporate welfare, in the intermingling and the entanglement of the private sector and big government in the case of big tech, rather than using old school antitrust rules to look at whether these companies are too big or too powerful. That's where I think conservatives really need to focus.
Yeah, old school thinking usually doesn't go too well. And so this is like a separation of tech and state, if you will, Vivek.
Exactly.
Now, I want to talk.
Separation of church and state. I like tech and state. That's a good principle.
All right, so let's talk about specifically the mental health aspect here. Senator Marsha Blackburn was on CNBC last week talking about how she plans and other senators plan to grill these executives over the fact that they knew that Instagram can harm the mental health of teenagers. Here she is.
What we know now is that social media lacks the discipline to police themselves, and they have their own research, not outside research, not a pediatrician's research, but their own research that identifies these harms and even goes to the level of the harm. So it will be up to us to say, you cannot market to children. You cannot allow children that are 13 to open an Instagram account.
Now, she's right that these companies don't seem able to regulate themselves. Now, I think you would argue, too, that the federal government doesn't have the ability to regulate them right now. So I guess it comes down to us individually, Vivek, to be the police on this issue. Is that what it comes down to?
Yeah, so look, I have a slightly different perspective on this. I saw the Wall Street Journal's reporting. It was good reporting, but my net takeaway is a little bit different than I think the ire that a lot of conservatives had at first blush to say that Facebook's done another bad thing here. The thing we should hold Facebook accountable for is their rampant institutional lying. Senator Blackburn is correct that they knew that they were doing harm while pretending to make the world a better place. Same thing, by the way, with respect to their elite program that the Wall Street Journal also reported on last week, where they give a different content moderation procedure, a different censorship set of rules for elite users. And then they lied to their own oversight board, their allegedly independent oversight board that they spent $130 million creating. They then lied to that board. That board then ends up just being a smokescreen to dupe the public. That's what we should hold Facebook accountable for. Rampant institutional lying. I think it may rise to the level of consumer fraud, telling consumers you're doing one thing when in fact doing another. That is different, though, John, from holding them accountable for teen body issues, for anger management issues. I think those issues have to be addressed through our culture, through civic engagement, through religion, through the churches, through small communities, through the family.
Unplugging,
those are issues
right?
that we have to address offline. And I don't think that holding Facebook accountable for that, I think, is a step in the wrong direction, because it actually would give these companies greater social power and make them into our modern churches, which is what they've become, when we've forgotten, I think, the real sources of civic engagement and faith and family and real sources of virtue in the offline world that have to be a precondition for the internet to work. So I feel pretty strongly about that.
I think it's something every family struggles with, is turning off those screens, focusing on the here and now, being present in the reality. Vivek, great to see you as always. Thanks so much.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.